All right, so let's do our top. This isn't like a ranked list, but these are movies, great slashers, no sequel. I got 10 movies for you right here. Great slashers, no sequel. Literally just came up with this idea today because I always like to do like just a little countdown, something like that, you know? And I did post this on Killer Flicks too, but by the time I went back and looked, I had already had my 10 picked. So, and when I did go back, I did see a few of them that did pop up on Killer Flicks, okay? In that picture, it does look kind of weird, like the guy in the background. That's a weird angle. I never even noticed that, but yeah. So again, no particular order, 10 movies, great slashers, no sequel, and I tried to put a good mix, a variety of slashers on here. This is your backwoods slasher, Just Before Dawn. I think probably the best backwoods slasher I've ever seen. Probably better than Wrong Turn. Just because I love the final girl in this. I like a final girl that has an arc, you know, and starts out kind of a waif, and then she ends up becoming a force by the end of the movie. And this character, and that's not her, that's one of the victims, but this character, by the end of the movie, not only does she become a force, but there's a kill scene that will take the jaws of life to remove from your skull. Like, there's quite a few great freaking kill scenes in this movie, but it's also a great movie. Greg Henry, a very young Greg Henry, is in this. Greg Henry's like one of the best character actors out there. He's in a lot of, God, why am I drawing a blank? When I'm live streaming, names don't, for some reason, they just vacate out of my head. Okay, James Gunn. James Gunn uses Greg Henry in a lot of his movies. Okay, but there's a very young Greg Henry in this movie. Constance is the final girl's name. Do you guys want me to tell you? I don't know. You know what? I don't want to tell you the kill scene, okay? There's a couple kill scenes in this movie that are woof. Yeah, they really came to work that day. And I watched Offerings today, that Halloween ripoff, and the kills are really lame and lazy, and maybe they just didn't have the best budget for practical effects, you know? Because sometimes you have to spend a day around a kill, you know? If you want it to be a great Tom Savini type kill, you could spend an entire day on just that one kill, that one scene. And but this movie, they probably spent a day on each of these kills that are really, really freaking awesome, okay? But it's a great movie, too. It's a great backwoods slasher. It came out in, was it 81 or 80? Around that time frame, and that's like my favorite time frame for horror. Now, you give me 1980, 81, and that's a good day, man. But I just love the look of those movies back then, right? And yeah, this one's classic. Shout out to Wolfman's Got Nards, Barry. He's the one that introduced me to this movie. This happens to be his favorite backwoods slasher. And I think it might be one of his favorite horror movies, if I'm being honest. And I see why. It's great. It's really great. 81. Thank you, Austin. Yeah. By the way, guys, best year in horror history for me, 1981. Next one, again, no particular order. I like to throw some deep cuts in here. And can anybody tell me what that movie is? That is Killer Party. I just discovered this movie, I think, last year. And boy, wow. Don't you love it when you find a movie that quickly becomes one of your favorite slashers? Like, say if it's a slasher movie. It's like, I watched Amityville 2: The Possession for the first time a couple years ago. And I ran, not walked, to my review chair. Same thing with this movie. If I see a movie for the first time from the 80s that like just freaking leaps out at me and is almost angry at me for not watching it back in the day, I have to run to my chair and talk about it, you know? And man, Killer Party is so refreshing and fun. And man, talk about great music. It starts off with some great freaking heavy metal. You know, you got this heavy metal. It's pretty much a music video at the beginning of the movie with this heavy metal band, White Sister. And White Sister was in Halloween 5. They one of their songs was in Halloween 5. But there's an entire music video at the beginning of this for White Sister. And the song, it's called April, No Fool. Because this is an April Fool's Day movie. I won't spoil anything, but the final act, it goes in a different direction and it becomes something different. Okay? It's one of the most unique slashers I've ever seen. I'll just say this. It combines the slasher genre with, I'll tell you, like the possession type genre. All right? And because if you look on the my thumbnail for this stream, you can see that. But man, this movie, this might be the deep cut that I recommend the most to you guys out of this list. I'm begging you guys, if you haven't seen Killer Party, oh my God, I just did you a huge favor. A huge favor. And you're going to be thanking me after. I promise. You're going to be digging into White Sister's collection and, just great stuff. Great stuff. High Tension is a good one. High Tension is is High Tension a slasher? Yeah, it's pretty much a slasher. And I figured I'd throw a remake in here. And just because I do prefer the remake to My Bloody Valentine over the original. And I love the original. Don't get me wrong. But I really love the balls out approach of the remake. There was a certain formula that you had for horror movies and slasher movies back in the 80s. And, TNA was a big part of it. Parties, having fun was a part of it. Excess, And I love that this remake said, you know what? We're not going to stick to the current trends of not showing any like nudity in horror movies. We're going to freaking go balls out, no pun intended, and we're going to honor what made those movies so fun back in the 80s, right? And so you get extreme violence in this movie. You get boobies. Freaking naked woman just running out of a hotel room for like an entire scene. Lots of it. Yes. And I loved that approach in this movie, because 90% of horror movies around this time up to now, for some reason they just don't like showing nudity and stuff, and that's fine. That's fine. But it just adds to the flavor, I guess. It's a certain flavor. And this movie is probably the best 3D movie I've ever seen, too, in terms of the technology. I saw this in the theater when it came out. And this was one of those movies you're sitting in a theater, and a pickaxe is literally like 2 inches in front of your nose, I love that about it. Grocery market scene, Franck, yes. Very good. Very good. This might be one of my favorite remakes, the more I think about it. It might, and I've watched this movie more than I've watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. But man, this one is just fun. It's so, fun goes a long way for me in slasher movies. I don't know, I like a serious slasher, but I really love to have a good time with a slasher, right, guys? I like to party. I like popcorn. I like dancing. I love it. I love it. I love having a good time with a slasher movie. Okay. Now, next one, and I got some more fun ones on here too, I think. Next one, some of you might not have seen this one, but boy, is this a freaking classic. Holy crap. Silent Rage with Chuck Norris. It's pretty much Chuck Norris versus Michael Myers, okay? Because that guy choking the dude, he was like an experiment, because he's killed at the beginning of the movie. And so they bring him back to life. So there's a science fiction element to this movie. So it's a marriage of two different genres, though, because it's definitely an action movie for like the first half. And you get like this bar scene where Chuck Norris is like completely kicking ass, fighting, he's fighting like a dozen guys in a bar. And Chuck Norris, man, back in the day, holy shit, he was the real deal, okay? He fought Bruce Lee, people, all right? And you get some of that in here. But then it becomes Chuck Norris fighting this machine, pretty much, this force of a man. And he doesn't speak, and he's pretty much like Michael Myers. And so there's this great final act at the end. But, this movie just has a lot of charm to it, too. It's not... There's no like comedy to it. It plays it pretty straight and pretty serious. And I think that's what makes it work. It has a little bit of a Terminator vibe to it as well. maybe, I don't know, maybe they saw Terminator and they were, or did this come out before Terminator? I was a big Chuck Norris fan back in the 80s. I saw the Mission Impossible movies. And I think they shot Mission Impossible 2 first. And they were going to release that as the first Mission Impossible. And then before the movie came out, they had finished technically the first Mission Impossible. And so the producers, they looked at the two movies and they said, hey, this movie that you finished, this is your better movie. So they swapped them. And so that's why they called the second movie The Beginning, because it was actually filmed first, right? And I like both movies, actually. I said Mission Impossible. Jesus. Mission Impossible. Next one, had to keep it current. Totally Killer. Man, if you guys haven't watched Totally Killer yet, it's on Amazon Prime. Man, this movie is so damn fun. It's a mixture of like Back to the Future. Like, what if Back to the Future was a slasher movie, right? Like, she goes back in time. And I always like in these time travel movies, they always have to come up with the device. You know, what is it that's going to send them back in time? Like, originally in Back to the Future, it was supposed to be a fridge. A refrigerator was going to send him back in time. And they eventually used that in the fourth Indiana Jones. But, you know, you have to come up with your own idea. And so this one, I kind of like the idea in this one. They used one of those photo booths that you find in like malls and stuff. And somehow she created a time travel machine. By the way, guys, I just watched Hot Tub Time Machine again a couple weeks ago. That is a fun freaking movie. Okay, I love Hot Tub Time Machine. It's freaking hilarious. You know, I'm a dreamer, but my heart's a gold. I like time travel comedies anyway, right? But Totally Killer, it's still funny and fun, but it's got some nice kills in it. And it's a Critical Overload. What's up, brother? Add Maxine to the list, even though it's not out yet. Yeah, right? Maxine's going to be a slasher. But Maxine is part of a franchise, right? And these are movies that there's no sequel. So if it's a prequel, that doesn't count, right? I guess if there's continuity in a storyline, then it wouldn't count. Okay? But man, we still haven't seen a trailer for Maxine or anything yet. And I'm dying for this movie. Critical, when does Maxine come out? There's no way that's coming out this year, right? It's because we'd see something by now. Rosalia has not seen Totally Killer. Okay, I'm glad you said that. I don't want to spoil anything, but Rosalia, get on that like immediately. Totally Killer is so fun. It's definitely in my top 10 of the year. I got a couple Valentine movies on here. Okay, the Valentine from 2000, I believe it's 2001. I remember, this is one of those movies where you remember it so well because of what you were doing in your life at the time, and especially if you go on like vacation. You guys ever, you know what I'm talking about? Like if you go on vacation, any movie that you see or any new music that you hear, it automatically gets cemented in that particular time frame. And I can say, I remember when I was a kid going on vacation to Florida, and I heard the song Shout by Tears for Fears for the first time. And now, every time I hear Shout, it makes me think of that memory. Okay? So, Valentine, I was in the military, and I was going to like 7-level school is what we call it. When you go from like a 5-level to it's not a rank, it's more of like a skill set, you know? You have to do OJT, on the job training, you know, in whatever skill set you're in. And if you complete that, then they move you up to the next level. And it can be confusing because 7-level school has nothing to do with rank, right? But yeah, that's boring. Anyway, yeah. So I remember I was in school when this movie came out. I was TDY for a couple weeks. I was away from home, and I went. Anytime I'm away, and then there's like a new slasher movie, it gives me something to do, right? So I go and I watch this slasher movie, and I had a freaking ball with it. It's a cheese fest for sure. You got to know what you're going into, but you got your hot chicks in it. It's got some good kills. I love the Cupid mask. I think the Cupid mask is a highly underrated mask because it's the right amount of creepy. Would you guys agree with that? There's something creepy about that mask in this movie. And, I was just talking about Totally Killer. And one of my slight issues with the movie was the mask. It's not scary at all. It's very much like the Happy Death Day mask, right? And to me, it's a leg up when you get a creepy mask. I love a good creepy mask in a horror movie, all right? And this one, I like that this one played it pretty serious. It's got like an anti-bullying theme to it. Richard Melton. What is that? Was that his name? Was it Richard Melton? Or am I thinking of the one of my classmates in high school? We had a Melton in high school. And maybe I'm getting it. Was it Richard Melton, guys, or was it somebody else? Let me know. All right. I feel like I'm wrong there. I know it's Melton. Jeremy Melton. Is that it? Is it Jeremy Melton? I think it's Jeremy Melton. Yes. Thank you, Erica. Jeremy Melton. All right. Well, we had a Richard Melton that I went to high school with. Okay. So he was definitely not bullied, though. Speaking of next, you're next. I think pound for pound, you're next on this list. It might be it might be number one. I can't remember. I'll have to look and see. Let me actually, you know what? Let me look at the rest of my list here to tell you. No, it's not number one, but it might be top three for sure. Okay? It might be top three. But this is a great freaking movie. And I am so shocked that we haven't seen a sequel to this movie because Erin, she lives in the movie. They left the door wide open for a sequel. And it's garnered enough of a fan base. I think it's like, would you guys consider this like a cult? Like it's got a cult fan base? Because I don't think it was a massive box office hit. People constantly bring it up still to this day, as a great slasher. And they constantly mix it with franchises. Different franchises. I love Halloween, Halloween 2018. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake. I love You're Next. It always finds its way in conversations for slasher movies because it's just that good. And Sharni Vinson is probably one of the best final girls to come along in, I'll say, the last 20 years. She is flat out amazing. She might have kicked the doors down for a new type of final girl. I mean, we've had tough final girls in the past, but never to this level. I mean, I've compared this to she's like the female Rambo. Okay, like you do not want to fuck with her. You don't want to break into her house, okay? Because she's just gonna have fun, right? And this is 3 killers, but also a deception outside of the 3 killers. Her boyfriend was up to no good. It was all like an insurance type snafu, and she was stuck in the middle of it all, and she completely slays and kicks ass. One of my all-time favorite slashers that doesn't have a sequel, 10 to Midnight, another action slasher with Charles Bronson. Now this is one I used to watch this one and Silent Rage quite often back in the 80s. And with both movies, for some reason, I went through a good 20-year period where I never bothered to watch the 2 again. And then after I started my YouTube channel, and you start digging deep for deep cut slashers, and then you're reminded of these movies that you watched back in the day. And I will say, when I threw this in, I think it was a couple years ago, I reviewed it, and I didn't remember much of anything at all. And boy, was I in for a treat. This is a white-knuckled meat cleaver. It does not hold back that type of slasher. It gets down and dirty. It definitely doesn't go light. It's not a comedy. And what I love about it is as dangerous as the killer is, Charles Bronson ain't having it. He's the one guy that's like, I'm not afraid of you. I'll freaking kill you right here, right now. I don't give a shit, you know? And you believe it. Charles Bronson was the man in this movie. And this killer, though, was not to be toyed with. And he kills all his victims naked. Because I guess it's a way for him to, not leave behind any evidence, right? And so he just takes his clothes off and he goes in and kills them. And the ladies in the chat will like that because he's a pretty nice looking dude. Okay? But he's completely insane. He's out of his freaking mind, which also makes it nice. He's a wacko, right? And wackos are violent. And he's extremely violent, you know? There are moments in this movie that definitely remind me of Terminator. And maybe it's just the time period that this came out because it came out around the same time. But great name. I love the name 10 to Midnight. Yeah, this one is freaking amazing. 10 to Midnight, guys. Cannot recommend it enough. All right. These next two will not surprise you. But we're going to do this anyway. And there you go. Black Christmas, the original, one of my all-time favorite movies. Not just horror, not just slasher. I adore Black Christmas. And I found it through Halloween, funny enough, because I saw the 25 Years of Terror documentary. I watched that thing probably a dozen times. And right at the beginning, they mentioned Black Christmas. And I had never seen or heard of Black Christmas. And this was 2003 when I first heard about it. And I didn't expect much from watching it, but then after I watched it, I became obsessed with the movie. It even still to this day, it has a vibe all its own, you know, even for back then. There's something really unique. I believe it was filmed in 16 millimeter. It definitely has that vibe to it. So, what a freaking movie, though. And I watch it every December, and I love the characters in it. Bob Clark wanted to create intelligent women. He didn't want these women to be idiots. But yet there's still some comedy in there with Margot Kidder, who's hilarious. And yeah, man, Black Christmas. What a freaking movie. I love Black Christmas to death. There's just so much style to the movie too, you know? Because the kills aren't crazy in it, but they're definitely stylish. Like the way Barb gets killed with the ornament, you know, like I think it's like a horse or a unicorn ornament, you know, just a crystal ornament. And it's just and as she's being killed, you hear the choir, you know, these carolers singing outside, and the juxtaposition is there, but it really is really creepy and it fits, you know. So there's even the Christmas music moments in this movie feel horror, feel kind of off, a little weird, and I don't know if that was intentional. I'm sure it was, but very few Christmas horror movies can pull off the creep factor like Black Christmas does. There's just something. Yeah, I was just going to say that, R. Jacob. Unnerving. That's the perfect word for it. One of the most unnerving films of all time. And I think a big part of that, too, is the score. It's a very organic score. It's not like say, for Halloween, it's not like a piano-type score. It's definitely its own thing. And it sounds like something that was created through tension, you know? I know that they were like pulling at organ strings, scraping them with like a fork, just getting really creative. And I love a director that just gets creative with a horror movie. And Bob Clark really did that with this. And there's so many movies that I left off of here, you know, because I could easily do another 10. There's so many movies that haven't gotten sequels, you know, yet. So I'll go ahead and show you them. Number one is Happy Birthday to Me. I love this movie to death. I think if you like good twists, but also really crazy, outlandish. Like they would never go that far. They would never do. Oh, they did. You know, that's Happy Birthday to me. It goes beyond. You know, it's like when you're writing a script and you're coming up with a twist, and you say to yourself, okay, let's write down 5 ideas that I know for a fact are not going to be in this movie. They're just completely out there, but I'm trying to stretch my creativity factor. So, you know what? Without even thinking, the first thing, let's just put it down. Let's just write it down just as an exercise, okay? They did that in this, but they put it in the movie, you know? And I'm not going to spoil the twist, or twists. There's like quite a few twists in this movie, but I think movies like Scream owe a massive debt to Happy Birthday to Me. It's got some fantastic kills. I think the acting is really great. I like a crazy, psychotic performance, and you definitely get that in this. Another one that I can tell you, because I'm thinking of, is another birthday movie, is Madhouse, which I also reviewed Madhouse. And I don't know which movie has crazier characters. Is it this one or Madhouse? Because in Madhouse, in the final act, they completely lose their... I'd say the final acts are kind of similar and equally crazy. And I might have to go back and rewatch both of them because they have really great performances, okay? I love a good psychotic performance in a horror movie. Don't bore me with just a straight-laced, boring performance, all right?